Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop. All the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Welcome to Inside Scoop, Virginia. I'm Bettina Lawton, and I'm your host. And my guest tonight is Gwen Klein, the founder of Value Based Patient Advocacy. Gwen acts as a patient advocate between hospitals, doctors, and the patient, along with insurance companies as well. Gwen graduated from the Dominican University of California with a Bachelor's of Science in Nursing in 2006. In addition to her professional credentials, she has what we called lived experience, beginning with the serious diagnosis of her son when he was young and continuing through the deaths of both of her parents. She was selected by Campaign Zero as a partner in community education, and we're going to discuss that tonight as well. So, welcome. I'm glad you could make it, Gwen.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. So I want to know what the whole backstory is of, you went to nursing school, but how did you decide to become a patient advocate? What led you there?
First, I do want to mention, in nursing school, I was nominated to receive an honorary leadership award by all of my graduating class.
Terrific.
So that was pretty neat, and I think I'm doing something that not many of them are doing. What made me decide to become a patient advocate? Prior to going to nursing school, I was getting my GE stuff, and my son fell off the monkey bars. He was in kindergarten, and we went to the hospital, and basically my husband said, "You can go home, take the baby home, they're just going to set the arm." And then he called and said, "You need to come back." And I went back to the hospital, and the doctor looked at me over my son's bed, my 6-year-old son, and said, "There's nothing more we can do for your son. We think he has bone cancer." I mean, there was no bedside, nothing. So it just, I excused myself, had to recollect myself and then come back. But I think one of the things that I did was he was diagnosed with a disease called monostotic fibrous dysplasia. And it's a benign bone tumor. It makes the bone brittle and easy to break. But there's no cure for it. He's missing a G protein. So I think what a lot of people do when they don't know anything about something, they research it. But I didn't know the proper way to research because I hadn't gone to nursing school. So I just went on Google and just started researching, and I found a chat forum. Biggest mistake of my life.
Really? Because that's the first thing people do today is go on Google and say, "Oh, here's what I have. What does that mean?"
So
So why is it a big mistake?
Well, that's a great question. I started reading about people that were talking about amputating limbs because it was so painful, this disease. It's usually in long bones. Here, it's in the jawbone, it's in the scalp, and long bones, the leg, and it's in my son's arm. And that was terrible information. So we had to go back to the doctors. He had a pediatric orthopedic oncologist. Very rare. There's only like 500 of them in the country. And this was at, I think, CPMC in California. And we just had to go back every 6 months for a while, and then every year, and then it was every 2 years. And he finally got to the point where he said, "I don't get to say this to my patients very often, but I don't need to see you anymore." Wow. Most of his patients die. So we were lucky. I read about bone lengthening surgeries and steel pins, and it was just, everything I read was a horror story.
Yeah, for a 6-year-old kid?
Yeah, for me to read about my son. So he's fine. He's 22 years old, doing great, no more problems, no pain in his arm. But it was scary. It was really scary, and I didn't have anybody to turn to.
And so is that what led you to nursing school?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. And then your parents have also since passed away.
Yes. I was just starting nursing school. That was in my first semester. I was a single mother of my 2 young sons, and my mother moved in with me to help me raise my children. 1 month later, she was diagnosed with lung cancer.
Oh, wow.
So I said, "Mom, I'm going to drop out of school and take care of you." And she said, "If you do that, I'm checking out." And she meant it.
Wow.
So
good mother. Good mother.
She meant it.
Yeah.
So she wanted me to have an education, and she went into remission. I managed to get through school, nursing school, graduated with honors, and my mom. I did leave my graduation in an ambulance. My mom got sunstroke, but she was there.
So, all right, well, good. So here's what I want to know then. Because you say not a lot of people do it, and I don't really know another patient advocate. I mean, we met at my Rotary where you did this fabulous presentation.
Right.
So what does a patient advocate do? Do you, I mean, you obviously are advocating, but how does that work?
We do not give medical advice.
Okay.
But we will do the research necessary to give the patient all the information that they need to make informed decisions about their life. Okay. I don't feel that doctors give them all the information. They give some, but even still, patients don't always understand everything that the doctor is saying. And if they don't understand what the doctor is saying, they can't ask the right questions. I make sure that doesn't happen.
Okay. And then, and is that why do people need patient advocates? Just why can't I just go with my son if something happens? Why do I need a patient advocate? Do I need a professional patient advocate? Somebody who's got some kind of a medical degree?
Well, if you're familiar with the medical industry, then
only in the worst possible way.
I went with my mother when she was diagnosed with lung cancer, and I took a tape recorder. But I still didn't understand anything the doctor said.
Well, you know, I did that. My older son was in the war, and in Iraq, and he was injured. And we had that problem, but I wasn't supposed to go with him to these things because he's a soldier and you're just the mother. And so I got him a digital tape recorder, and I said, just put it in your pocket and record it. And that way, because he had traumatic brain injury, he could not remember what they were saying. And he was a combat medic, so he actually did understand what they were saying. He just couldn't remember any of it.
Okay.
And I found that tape recorder about 6 months ago and listened to it, and it all came back, was all horrible.
Wow, yeah.
But it is a great suggestion because it's right there and you can go back over what's being said.
Well, here's the thing. I use an acronym, which I got from Tricia Torrey. She's the founder of the Alliance of Professional Health Advocates that I'm a member of. And she said, which I agree, most of my clients come to me suffering sort of under the FUDGE theory. And said the FUDGE is an acronym. It means fear, uncertainty, doubt, guilt, or grief, and exhaustion. And how good of a decision capabilities do you have if you're feeling that way? None. And most of my clients come to me in crisis. So they're at their wits' end. I had a gentleman tell me that on the phone today. I do not know what to do. I can't take it anymore. He's about to get married. He has cancer himself. He's trying to take care of his 83-year-old mother. Oh, wow. It's just overwhelming for him.
Right.
So
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you've got folks who, and you mentioned this national alliance. So if somebody is sitting out there in, St. Louis, can they go on the website of this organization? Can you find patient advocates?
Absolutely. The APHA, Alliance of Professional Healthcare Advocates, has another site called Advo Connection. So if you live in Tallahassee, you just put in your zip code, the type of advocating you're looking for. There's all kinds of advocating. There's medical bill advocating. There's hospital bedside monitoring advocating. There's anything you can imagine. You just put in or select, because it'll have little bubbles you can choose from. Put in your zip code and it'll bring up all the advocates in your area.
And now, what do you have to do to join the alliance? Do they have, you have a nursing degree, so obviously you have a clue what's going on.
But you don't have to.
So what's the standard? What should people look for in a patient advocate? What kind of qualifications?
They should get references. There is a new board that people are having to take. They've just rolled it out. I think that this is the first month that they're having people sit for the boards to become certified, to be a certified patient advocate. So I'll be sitting for that board soon, but there's no educational requirements. I mean, if you think about it, if you had a loved one that you took care of for years, and you fought for them and you've advocated for them, and many people have, and so they're perfectly well, equipped to do some sort of advocating, whatever. Some people want to do it for mental health. Some people want to do it for women having children, newborns, mothers that are pregnant, teaching them how to nurse, things like that. There's all kinds of advocating that can be done.
Okay, so not everybody does everything and things that you could do because you're a nurse, for example, somebody else might not be able to?
Well, I just have the education. I have the knowledge from going to school. So I'm familiar in a hospital. I'm familiar looking at charts. So that kind of things. If somebody is a lawyer, you know, they might struggle with it some more, and they may not choose to do that kind. But there's also legal healthcare advocates, because it's just tricky. And there's so many times where I've had so many people say, I want to sue this doctor for this, or I want to sue this clinic for that, and it gets kind of touchy. So I try not to do that, because that's not my area of expertise, you know. But I mean, anybody, I've heard them talk about a plumber. I mean, it doesn't matter if you want to fight for what's right. And clearly, it's very easy to educate yourself on, you know, I've read so many articles. Doctors spend, I think it's like 8 minutes with their patients now.
Right.
They get interrupted within the first 13 seconds. So if you imagine yourself sitting on a chair on the bench or in the table in the doctor's office, and you're in your paper gown, and
Which is always so wonderful.
Right, and you're waiting, and you're waiting, and you're waiting for the doctor to come in. He finally comes in, so you start telling him, this is what's going on. And if you're interrupted within 13 seconds, and he starts doing other things and starts the exam, and then they're walking out the door going, is there anything else? What, your train of thought is gone.
Right.
So people get the white coat syndrome too, which is, you know, they shouldn't. They should just understand this is a man, but you should ask questions. Absolutely.
Well, it's like one of my friends, actually, who is a doctor, said something about MD stands for minor deity. And he laughed when he said it, because he isn't that way. But he said that's what a lot of doctors figure, you know, I have all this education and I know what I'm doing and you should just trust me and that should be it, you know. And that really can't be it, because, as you say, they don't spend enough time with you to know for sure.
No. And the thing is, what's really scary is that the young doctors that are graduating, these new graduates, they're spending so much time doing paperwork. This was an article I think I read by Johns Hopkins, I think. It's on my website. But how they're spending so much time doing paperwork, they're not getting the hands-on time with the patients. So when something does come up, like an abnormal heartbeat, they may not recognize it because they haven't had the hands-on time.
Wow. Well, we're going to take a break right now because we're going to go to some PSAs. And when we come back, we're going to pick it up. I want to make sure we get your website in, because you mentioned that this article is on your website. It sounds like it's got a lot of great resources. So stay with us, because we will be right back.
You know what, guys? There's a lot of tree branches and dry brush over here. We should probably move the bonfire over there.
I'm guessing Smokey liked that idea.
Hey, Hard, what's this?
That's my resignation.
You're resigning.
Why?
You've been putting me under a lot of pressure lately. That's why I'm ready to quit.
Oh, I forgot. I'll do better. Please don't quit on me.
Don't let your heart quit on you. Get your uncontrolled high blood pressure to a healthy range before it's too late.
So you can't save money? That's easy as pie. Brown bag your lunch instead of going out. $6 save times 5 days a week times 10 years is $21,000. That's a lot of lettuce. Small changes today, big bucks tomorrow. Feedthepig.org.
Did you know kids who play outdoors have healthier lungs?
Totally.
I did. Did you know that boys that play with dolls make better husbands?
My son has lots of dolls. But did you know terry cloth diapers breathe better?
I did.
It's totally true.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know that strollers have the right of way on a sidewalk?
Yes.
Yep, I did. Did you guys
Did you know that kids who eat breakfast have higher GPAs?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. That's actually what I was going to say.
Did you know babies should never touch silver? It's really bad for them.
I knew that.
Did you guys know that statistically friendly kids have more friends?
Yeah.
That's obvious.
Did you know most people think they're using the right car seat for their kid, but they're not?
Parents who really know it all know for sure that their child is in the right seat at the right age and size. Visit safercar.gov/the right seat to make sure your child is protected.
I'm putting that on my blog.
I just put it in mine.
we're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back. I'm Bettina Lawton. This is Inside Scoop, and my guest tonight is Gwen Klein. She is a patient advocate. The name of her company is called Value Based Patient Advocacy. And we left, and I said I was going to ask you for your website because it seems like there's good information on it. So tell us what your website is.
It's valuesbasedpa.com.
PA obviously being patient advocate.
Yes,
as opposed to Pennsylvania. Just tell people how it goes, and I believe it's up on everybody's screen, so you can take a look at it.
There's a lot of information on there. I mean, the doctor says you need to get companion care. You know, there's 5,000 home care companies in this area. 5,000. Can you imagine? Well, which one do I choose?
Well, and the quality from my work as an estate and trust attorney, I've dealt with a number of them, and the quality really varies tremendously. And so you really have to be careful. And you're also bringing somebody into your home at a time when the patient, the individual, is not at their best, whether they're recovering from surgery or they're at the other end and maybe perhaps have some dementia issues. They're vulnerable. And so you're right, there's a lot of folks out there. So
and most of the care companions, some are very good at what they do, but most, they don't have a college education, and they're being paid a low wage in comparison to a nurse or something like that. So there's not, you know, there are more, you know, tendency sometimes to do things that aren't great ideas. They don't have as much to lose.
Well, and sometimes they just don't know. That's my other experience with some folks, is they make a decision and they're trying to do the best they can, but they just don't have enough of an information base to realize that what they're doing is just not helpful, and it could harm the person. So it's very hard. I want to talk about something called Campaign Zero. So what is that? I said in the intro that you are their partner in the community for education. So what actually is the campaign about?
It's near and dear to my heart. I love Campaign Zero. Campaign Zero is Families for Patient Safety. And what it stands for is how to be safe in the hospital, how to keep your loved ones safe in the hospital. 36 million people go into the hospital in this country every year. Of those 36 million, 12 million people have an adverse event happen, something that could have been prevented.
Okay, and is that the definition of adverse event, is something that could be prevented?
Yeah, it's not, we're not saying it's the hospital or the doctor. We have a fractured system. We have a system that's designed to fix mistakes, not prevent them. So it's picking up MRSA or a fall or just something that could have been prevented.
And so MRSA, as I understand it, is some
MRSA,
infection that you get in the hospital, and it's terrible and it goes along. The other one that I hear about is C. diff.
C. diff, and VRE. Those are three pretty gnarly infections. I gave birth to my son at Stanford University Hospital, and because somebody broke sterile technique, probably when they put my Foley catheter in, I ended up in isolation with a fever of 104 every night for 4 nights.
Oh my God!
At Stanford, just giving birth to my baby. So these things happen.
Wow. So what are you supposed to do?
There's many things you can do. I do this talk all over the place, and I tell people, if everything I'm going to teach you or tell you tonight, remember 2 things.
Okay.
Bring somebody with you.
Okay.
Have them with you. Take shifts if you have to of families and friends. Bring somebody with you, and there should be somebody there all the time. And they should write everything down. Who's coming in the room? What department are they from? What are you doing? What meds are you giving? What tests or procedure are you doing? When will we get the results? What are you looking for with this test or procedure? Do we call you to get the results, or will you call us? You have to get all the information. Ask questions about the meds. Don't ask while the nurse is giving the medications. Leave them alone then.
Right, okay.
So they don't get, make a mistake. So, but before they're going to, just say, can I ask you what medications you're giving? Also, get a hand sanitizer. Put it on your loved one's table, because they need to keep their hands clean too. And the hand sanitizer is usually on the wall, by the door.
By the door.
Right.
By the door.
So doctors are notorious for not doing it. Nurses are great. No offense, doctors, but but you just want to make sure, hey, wash your hands. Do you mind getting a squirt?
Right.
So.
Okay, and so what, you sit there with a notebook and you just write everything down?
I just sat with a patient. I do hospital bedside monitoring.
Okay.
I sat by this person's bed for 14 hours a day, every day for 4 days. He'd had a very serious surgery done. And I wrote down everything, every medication. And at one point, one of the nurses in the ICU did say, I think I was micromanaging, but I wanted to know what they're giving them. You know, I needed to know. It's just a need to know thing, just writing it down. They're always afraid they're gonna get sued.
Right.
But it's better be safe than sorry. What would happen if you didn't? So I encouraged him to use his incentive spirometer every half an hour, which is the breathing thing to prevent pneumonia. He didn't get pneumonia. He didn't get an infection. So but I had everything written down. When they gave pain meds, you know, what he ate, when he ate, how much he moved, everything.
Okay. And so this, once you do all of that, what do you do with it?
Well, really, you can keep it in case something did happen, but I was, talking to this client of mine about it. It's not like a person that's an artist. When they get done doing their piece of art, they have this beautiful piece of art. When I'm done, I have a healthy patient. Okay. It's no big kaboom. There's nothing glorious or anything. They just leave healthy.
Right.
That's the goal.
Okay. And then, so I'm sort of picturing this. If I'm sitting there and I did this with my sister when she was in the hospital, of sitting there and saying, who are you and what is that? But, I mean, they told me, I don't know. Although, I think of all the tests she had, and they would never come back and tell us what had happened. Yeah. What was the result? It was always, well, we need a different test, or we need whatever.
Right.
But it just sort of is that kind of monitoring. And I know you said before that, yes, you've got the schooling and all of this to understand stuff that other people won't. But the bedside monitoring, I would think you would want somebody in the health field who would have a clue of what they're looking for. I mean, I know enough to know that if there's a bunch of red around a wound, that's probably not a great idea.
Right.
But if somebody came in and said to me, oh, we're giving them X, I don't know. I mean, how do you know that it's what they should be having or not having, or how do you know to question it if you're not?
You should know the medications they take regularly. Okay. So if it's not one of their regular medications, you can ask, what's that for? Okay. What does it do? Maybe it's a different brand. Ibuprofen is the same as Advil, right? So acetaminophen is the same as Tylenol. So maybe it's just a generic name. But you can ask, is that a water pill? Is that a diuretic? Is it a heart pill? What's it for? And they'll tell you. If you question it, you can always look it up. That you can Google, and pretty much come up with a website that's going to tell you what it's for. So just somebody's better than nothing in the hospital. If they can't get a patient advocate, if they can't hire somebody to be there, or don't want to, or somebody, get somebody. At least have another pair of eyes in there. Besides, and somebody's going to actually pay attention and wants to be there and make sure that everything goes well. I mean, I'm not saying every time you go in the hospital something's going to happen, but 1 out of 3 isn't a great number.
Yeah, that's why I don't go to hospitals.
But that's the statistic. 1 in 3. Well, yeah, that's why you don't.
I don't go. You know what? If you're not there, you can't get it. So
right.
I'm well known in my family for that. I drive them crazy. But and I did actually have a friend who went in to the hospital recently for some surgery and got C. diff.
You hear about it all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Because I had heard you speak, and I said, ooh. That's not good.
And that will follow you the rest of your life.
Yes, that's what I heard. Now, why does it follow you? I don't understand that.
Because you can't get rid of it. It stays in your system the rest of your life. So every single time you go into the hospital, they flag your chart, and they know, and they have a contact precaution sign outside your door. Everybody that comes in has to glove and gown, and that's the way it will be the rest of your life.
Oh, wow, I didn't realize that.
Because once it's in your medical record, it's not going anywhere. So if you get MRSA or VRE or C. diff, that's it.
So are you more likely, like this friend of mine who ended up with C. diff, if she goes in the next time to the hospital, is she more likely to get it because she already had it? Is that what they're worried about, or what's the
She's
concern?
contagious. Other people can get it from her. So if your immune system is down, you can have more complications. But but the nurses, the staff need to know, because if you're a carrier, you're going to give it to the people. So they need to do it for their own precautions.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
That's, oh wow, that's pretty bad. You know, and you mentioned when you were talking about things that can happen in the hospital, falls. Because that's something that I worry about with my clients, because a lot of my clients are older. And I always sort of have this notion, you know, there's a fall and then something needs to get replaced, you know, some hip or some knee or something. And then it seems, when you get to a certain age, it seems to just escalate, you know, and you just, something else happens and something else happens. And
every time somebody has a fall and they're older, it's debilitating. It's harder and harder to recover from. So, because they're older. And falls can be, look, I walked into a box that had a chainsaw and it fractured my foot. So
you know about those things.
Yeah, our bones get brittle.
That's right.
It happens. So yeah, but it's really, people are more frail. They don't realize the vision's not as good. The reflexes aren't as fast to catch themselves. Throw rugs are a hazard. They need to go if you have senior paid clients. So falls are a huge problem with the elderly.
And so is that something, because I know there are some people who will, like, you know, look at the homes to say you need to get rid of like the throw rugs. And is that the type of thing that the patient advocates also do? Is go in and do sort of a safety audit of your house to say you need bars, or you need to get rid of this?
You need more lighting. You have, you know, fall risks here and clutter, and then, you know, we'll bring in a certified age-in-place specialist that will do a real, you know, thorough, you know, investigation of what could be done, and they'll, you know, we just did that in a client of mine's house. We just put in recessed lights, because the lighting is a big thing that needs to be improved on. Grab bars in showers, sometimes widened doorways if somebody has a wheelchair. But there's all kinds of things they can do. Lowering countertops, so lowering microwaves so that people can go around their kitchen and cook and use the microwave and all kinds of stuff. I've seen lowered bathroom sinks. It's really neat.
Cool. All right, well, we are going to talk some more about that, because we are going to be going to break in just a second or two. And so when we come back, we're going to talk about some of the other things that a patient advocate can do. And also, I want to talk about, it sounds to me like there's a lot of prep work that ought to go into what you're doing with an advocate before you go into the hospital. So stay with us, we'll be back.
Art, a universal language, an expression of culture, of self. And now, thanks to Empowered Women International, a way for emerging and established immigrant and refugee artists and artisans to find hope to earn a living while enriching the lives of all of us. Empowered Women International, making a better America every day. For more information on Empowered Women International's educational programs, or to make a tax-free donation, contact cfrip at AOL.com.
Here, kitty, kitty. Here, kitty, kitty, kitty. Here, kitty, kitty.
You'd think it would be easy to tell which kids have trouble with their eyesight. But that's not always the case. Even though 1 in 4 children may have a vision problem, eye doctors tell us the symptoms aren't always so obvious. We do know that 80% of all childhood learning is visual. And without good vision, kids can have trouble learning to read. And may fall behind in school. For clues on how to spot the real-life signs of childhood vision problems, and what parents can do, visit checkyearly.com. A public service message from the Vision Council of America and Reading is Fundamental.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to Inside Scoop. I'm Bettina Lawton, and I'm your host. And tonight we're talking about patient advocates. And with us is Gwen Klein. She is the founder of Value Based Patient Advocacy. And so we got a call during the break from Brian from Fairfax, and he had a question about how patient advocates get paid. Does insurance pay for the services that patient advocates do?
That is a great question. And there's a short version and a long version.
Okay. Well, let's do the complete but short version.
The short version would be no, I do not get paid by insurance companies. Insurance companies do have patient advocates, but their own paycheck comes from the insurance company. The insurance company puts guidelines on what they can do to advocate for that person. They can only go just so far, you know.
But I always thought that insurance company, quote unquote, advocates were more about controlling the services that you got than actually doing what you were talking about.
Right.
I would be shocked if I were actually to go into a hospital and somebody from the insurance company showed up. I would be like, get out.
Well,
because
listen,
I assume that they're not acting in my interest.
No, they're not. They're not. Hospitals have patient advocates, but they're really there to make sure the hospital doesn't get sued.
Right.
So I'm private pay, my clients pay me directly, but I have 100% unbiased fiduciary duty to my clients.
Okay.
So nobody can tell me what I can't do to fight for them.
Okay. And so give me, I don't want to put you on the spot and say, what do you get paid? But what's the typical range of, like, do you get paid hourly, or do you get, if you're in the hospital for 14 straight hours, do you get paid on a daily basis?
I get paid by the day for that.
Okay.
It's a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
All veterans, we do give a 50% discount right off the bat.
Okay.
So sometimes it's a block of time. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people just go on retainer. You know, there's so many. Did you know that 10,000 people turn 65 in this country every day?
Wow, that's a ton of folks.
There's going to be 70 million seniors by the year 2030. More seniors than there are younger folks. So,
that's going to have a huge impact on A, healthcare, and B, the economy.
And the care that they can get.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very different. But so many of them are alone.
They are.
So many live alone. Their family lives far away. I mean, I just had a client that I'd had for a year and a half pass away, and he had nobody. It was really, you know, his family came in and they were with him, thank goodness, at the end, but I was the one he called. And his last words to me were, "You were always there for me, Gwen."
Wow.
Those were his last words.
So.
And I was there.
That would be hard.
It was
people.
Yeah, he was a great guy. But we were there from the moment he had a stroke and a heart attack. My business partner, because he does finance, so we're health and wealth advocates. He did his pension and his thrift savings account from the government. I did the Social Security, I did the Medicare, but I mean, he would call me to pick him up Pepsis and chocolate chip cookies. He would call me because the pipe burst in his house. Oh yeah, you know, he was a great person. But I was there. I mean, he went into a rehab for 10 weeks. And I didn't charge him, just because he's a great guy and he's a good client. I drove to his house, about 40 minutes from my house, got his dog, drove it to the rehab so he could see his dog on Christmas Day, let him visit with his dog, and took him home, just because, you know, we're very similar to case managers, geriatric case managers. And somebody asked me the other day how we're different. And I think the way that we're different is that I literally will take their hand, I'll take my client's hand, and I walk that journey with them. Mm-hmm. And I'm always there, 24/7. They can call me anytime. And I'm more than, they're just not case files for me, my clients. They're people that I care about. And, you know, I feel like I would treat them the same as I would my own mother or my own father or my own spouse or sibling. I want to give them all the care and consideration and sympathy and guidance that I can.
So this is pretty intensive work. So do you have a guideline that you use that says, I'm only going to take X number of people in this kind of a condition versus the people who just need you on a one-off, come in and take a look at my house, which would probably develop to more.
Yeah.
But how do you do that? Because the notion of spending 14 hours a day for 4 days in the hospital, to me, says unless you're continuing to go for the other, 10 hours a day.
I had a lot of fires to put out when I got.
Yeah, I mean that would seem that that's a tough thing.
It is. I mean, I have clients. I have a client in California. I have a client in Massachusetts, and so I mean.
So you're not restricted by state lines either, then?
No.
Wow. So how do you do that? If somebody is obviously in Massachusetts and you're not there, I mean, what kind of services can you do long distance?
For that patient, the family hired me. Their son is bipolar and has some addiction problems, and they just can't handle it anymore. So I'm the liaison between the son and the family.
Wow.
And it's been asked that he not call them and not text them ongoingly. So there's times where I'll get 23 text messages in a day, and it's like, it's okay. And I tell them, come to me, don't go to your family, because I'm a third party. I'm not personally involved in this. So my patience is a lot more tolerant than theirs are. Oh, I'm the payee for him. His Social Security comes in my name for him, and there's a separate bank account that's been opened, so I pay his rent and send X amount of money on a monthly basis, but that gets divvied out weekly.
Right.
So, there's lots of things we do. We do research. We don't have to be local to do research.
Wow, that is interesting. I didn't realize you can do all of that stuff, and it can be sort of long distance.
I'm laughing because the things that we do we were talking today in my office, what don't we do?
Well, there is that, yeah.
I went Friday, I had to take my client who passed away, his dog, to get groomed. Saturday morning, I had to take him to the vet. Then I had to go buy a crate, put it together, and take the dog to the airport to go to his new family. Wow. So it just doesn't stop when I lose the patient. We organize the home, we're doing the estate sale, there's all kinds of stuff involved.
Wow.
We dot our I's, we cross our T's.
Good Lord. Okay. Well, I see on our screen that we have a call from Georgia in Vienna, and she wanted to know about ratings websites, that she's looked stuff up on websites. Do you have anyone that you particularly recommend?
I would say first trust but verify. Okay. I love that saying.
I think it has something to do with nuclear weapons, right? But okay. I don't know. Just
well,
think so.
Also trust but verify your website. You want to make sure that what you're looking up is evidence-based. A lot of what you see in the first few links on a website or on, when you Google something, they are pharmaceutical companies. If you really follow it, it's about money. So you want to make sure that it's a good website. Tricia Torrey from the APHA, Alliance of Professional Health Advocates, recently posted about Leapfrog. And Leapfrog is one of the sites I have on my blog, and it rates hospitals in the area. And it rates them on an A, B, C, D, E, or F grading system. Okay. And then you can go in on it and you can look, there'll be a whole section on falls, there'll be a section on infections, and where they scored, high or low. So it gives you deeper insight as to what's really going on.
So where does the information come from that she's using to do these scorings? I mean, are the hospitals required to report this someplace, and she pulls it together to do that?
She didn't do it. I don't know who put the website together, but I think it's vetted because Tricia Torrey wouldn't put, I don't think, anything on there that's not.
So she's a trusted source.
She's a very trusted source. Yeah. Okay.
And how do you find that? So if I'm sitting here, in Vienna and have to go to that mythical hospital and actually go, do I go on to this Leapfrog?
Yeah, I mean, if you can Google Leapfrog hospital ratings, or you can go to my website and look at my blog, it's on there.
Okay, and then do I put in like my zip code, or do I put in what illness I'm going to?
You can put in city and state or zip code, and it'll bring up everything within, whatever mile radius you want, a 10-mile radius, a 50-mile radius.
Okay. Now, do they have, and I'm just sort of all of a sudden I'm going, oh, wow, I wonder if I could look this up. So there are certain hospitals in this area that I always hear, if you have a heart attack, you go here.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Can you look things up to say, you know, if I have a heart attack, is there a rating for those kinds of things?
Well,
or it's more of...
I mean, by reputation, I know that, like, Inova Fairfax has a great cardiac unit.
Right.
We also know that Fair Oaks, Inova Fair Oaks is a magnet hospital. So are you familiar with Magnet?
I don't know what they are. What are Magnet?
Magnet is a accreditation, or it's a word that says you've achieved magnet status, which is the best.
On safety or what?
That's given out by JCO, the Joint Commission, and that's an organization that accredits hospitals. And they have to follow their policies and procedures, and they get their accreditation money from JCO. They keep their doors open because of JCO, or closed, depending.
Right.
So.
Oh, good. Well, because I actually like Fair Oaks. When my kids, because I had 2 sons, and for a while I was a little worried. They kept going to the emergency room because of all the sports stuff. I thought, somebody's going to call Child Protective Services on me. I'll tell you.
Let me tell you something interesting that you made me think of when you said going to the hospital. There's a lot of things that, as an advocate, I know that people aren't aware of. Like Blue Cross is not going to cover ER visits anymore unless it's deemed medically necessary. Okay? They're starting it in Georgia. And then you know what's going to happen. Blue Cross is going to say, wow, look at all the money we're saving now. Okay, because they're not going to cover any ER visits. They're not going to cover any MRIs that are done in a hospital.
Oh my gosh.
People don't know this.
That's outrageous.
I know. So they're going to say, look at all the money we're saving in Georgia. Let's just spread that on down the eastern seaboard.
Now, are they looking at that? Because I have heard in various places that people have begun to use the ER as a doctor.
Yes.
You know, and so what you have is you have the flu. Do you need the ER? No. Versus my kid got hit with the baseball, there's a big crack, and I think something's broken.
I have a client right now that I'm doing medical bill review for, and she had a hospital visit that was denied because it wasn't deemed medically necessary. She had pancreatitis.
Oh, wow.
That is, I think, worthy of an emergency room visit. So I had to get the medical records and send it all in and say, are you telling me that having pancreatitis is not medically necessary? What are you supposed to do?
That's outrageous.
Yeah.
That's outrageous.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord, there's a wave coming from the south. This is very discouraging to hear all of this, I must say.
Yeah. Well, and as far as a good hospital, I think what's really important is a good doctor.
Okay.
And you really need to do due diligence in finding a good doctor, because that's what's really important.
Well, we're going to talk about that when we come back, because we have our final break, and then we're going to come back. We're going to talk about finding good doctors. We're going to talk about the other things that patient advocates can do, and sort of do a big wrap-up. So stay with us, because we'll be right back.
One day these rats were playing in the woods. One in some matches, and that's no good. Listen to Smokey before you give it a try. Only you. Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Cause there's nothing very funny about nothing very nice on a homeless mind. So if a gorgeous force is what you desire, don't play with matches. Don't play with fire.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fire.
Why don't you just wash your car at home?
When I wash my car, everything runs down the street and down into the storm drains. With all the chemicals in the soaps and waxes, the last thing I want to do is poison my own drinking water.
At least here, it's all contained and recycled on site.
That's why I also take my car in for oil changes instead of doing it myself. I might take a chance on spilling stuff.
You know what the best part is?
What?
More time to kick back and watch the game.
How far would you go to protect the planet?
I want you to build an ark.
Here we go. Okay, that's good. Oh, okay. Ow!
Maybe there's another way.
People, the flood is imminent. Is it too much to ask for a little precipitation?
Go to fightglobalwarming.com to find out what you and your community can do to reduce global warming pollution.
Somewhere around the world, there are men and women of the armed forces risking their lives, helping rebuild communities after natural disasters. collecting toys for needy children, tutoring kids in school. These are your sons and daughters who work to keep us safe, secure, and free. Dedicated men and women who put their country first.
Welcome back to Inside Scoop. I'm Bettina Lawton and I'm your host, and we are talking patient advocacy tonight with Gwen Klein. She is the founder of Value Based Patient Advocacy. And Gwen, I want to talk to you about doctors. You mentioned doctors as we had to go to break. Yes, so doctors. How do you find a good doctor? Because, you know, the Washingtonian comes out every year with like the 100 best doctors, and they do it by specialties. And then you see, you know, U.S. News and World Report might have one, or Time. You know, do those things have any real credibility?
I've heard that they basically pay to get in there.
Okay, I've always thought that.
You know, I mean,
and I know they do that with lawyers, so I sort of assumed it worked the same way.
Yeah, so I wouldn't go by that. I think it's really important to do due diligence. It's really important to, and that's what I do a lot of. I research a lot of doctors for people because I find out everything that I can. Where did they go to school? Are they board certified? It's really important to have somebody that's board certified. I think education is very important. I see if they have any sanctions against them or malpractice claims.
Oh, wow.
And then they should go visit.
Yeah, okay. So you can actually just do that, visit a doctor?
Yeah, see if you like them. If you want them to be your doctor, you have to connect with them. Although not totally. I mean, if you're looking for somebody that does heart surgery and he's as dry as a sponge, the personality of a dry sponge, but he's really good at what he does, that's probably more important than the fact that you connect with him. But you know,
I wish doctors would figure out that if you make me sit in your waiting room for an hour, that'll be the only time I'm sitting in your waiting room, because I'll never go back. Well, I don't care how good you are. So my time is as valuable as theirs. And if they can't manage their office, you know.
But think about this. If you take your car in to get fixed, and your mechanic doesn't fix your car, are you going to pay him?
They make you pay before you go.
Are you going to? Okay, but really, you're not going to pay him if he doesn't fix the car properly. And if somebody gives you a bid on for a new air conditioning unit, are you going to question the price or question anything? Of course you are.
For sure.
But people don't do that with their health care. They don't do that, which drives me crazy. So first of all, you get sick, you go see your doctor, right? And then you go home and you don't get better. So what do? You go back to see him again. You know?
He didn't fix it the first time. Well, we have Fred from Arlington who wants to know, if someone is diagnosed with a health issue, should they reevaluate their wealth? I'm not quite sure what that means.
Yes, absolutely.
So tell me what you think about that.
Well, I mean, you know, people don't realize what's going on. They're not prepared, particularly this generation, the millennials. The baby boomers, but they're not prepared for what could happen if you have a stroke. If your spouse has a stroke and you need 24-hour in-home care in your house 7 days a week, do you have any idea how much that costs? It's a lot, and people aren't prepared for it. A lot of people, I have an 85-year-old client who told me the other day he had to sell stock to pay his $8,000 home care bill. I almost fell off my chair. It's like, what are you doing in the stock market? You're 85 years old. What, I mean, you know, and you can't afford to pay your bill now? What are you going to do if the stock market crashes?
Well, I mean, hopefully he saved enough for the taxes he's going to owe.
Yeah, I mean, people aren't prepared for dementia. If they get, if they have to go into a memory care unit, some of these memory care units are $16,000 a month. So, I mean, we work with our clients if they own their own home. We had a client recently that had to have the 24-hour care, 7 days a week, 90 years old, healthy, just frail, but she fractured her hip, so she needed the care. And after a couple of weeks, I told my business partner, you know, we should reassess her finances, because she's also a financial client of his. And she was going to be broke in 5 years. She could have lived that 5 years. So we brought in a reverse mortgage company, and she stayed in her home, and she didn't have to sell or liquidate any of her assets, you know, and she did pass after about a year, but, you know, so it wasn't of any great detriment. She was able to stay in her home. So, but people do need to reevaluate their wealth, because healthcare is expensive.
Yeah, it is. And it is shocking to me. I've had clients who have gone and needed the the 24-hour care at home, and then looking at them, because as they got worse, it became apparent they're not going to be able to stay in their home all the way through. And doing the analysis that says, okay, when these resources get to about here, we got to make the move. We got to, because we needed to do something about the house, and it wasn't becoming safe for her to stay there. And she passed before we actually had to make that move, which would have been pretty traumatic for her. But you do have to pay attention to what do you have? What are the resources you have? Because more and more is not being covered, and it's more and more expensive. And people have no idea what it costs, particularly in this area.
And your finance guy, the Charles Schwab, they're not going to say, hey, I understand you have cancer. Maybe you should take a look at your portfolio. They don't do that. My family, we were 4 generations with A.G. Edwards, and my mother got brain cancer. They never told her that she should get out of the stock market. They never did. Why would they? But she should have. It's almost a blessing she passed away, because it was 2008 when she died, and the stock market crashed. And if she had lived, she would have lived, and she would have been poor, and that would have killed her. So, but they don't. They're not going to say, hey, man, you want to think about this, because they don't care. Unlike my company, where we care, we understand, we take the health factor, with the wealth. So we do the health and the wealth, and because that's what we're about.
So let me ask you something, because we were talking about finding doctors. I want to ask about second opinions, because a lot of people are, well, there's 2 things. A lot of people are really reluctant to ask for a second opinion. And then how do you find somebody to give one?
Okay, first of all, many insurance companies will actually cover a second opinion now, because it's so vital. Check with your insurance company and make sure. But 12 million people are misdiagnosed in this country every year. That's a lot of people. So, I'm talking like cancer diagnoses when it's really not cancer. So yes, absolutely get a second opinion. If it's a surgery, get a second opinion. Do not ask your doctor for the name of a doctor.
Well, exactly, because it's like when you give references, you're always going to give somebody who's going to say you're great.
Right, but also those doctors are going to talk. And so that doctor's not going to say, if he goes golfing with the other doctor, he's not going to contradict him and say that was a bad diagnosis. You want to get a different doctor in a different town or a different part of town, certainly a different practice. And you want to ask sort of the same questions that you asked the first doctor, so that you can compare apples to apples.
Okay, so are there checklists or apps or websites or something that says, here's what you need to ask the doctors?
There used to be, and I don't know of a new one. Doctello was a really great one. It told you what questions to ask for a certain procedure, but they've gone, I don't know where they went, but they're not around anymore. I'll tell you a really great way to find a surgeon. The best person to ask is the anesthesiologist. They're hard to get to, because they work with all the surgeons. So if you know any nurse anesthetists or anesthesiologists, they're a really good source. So, but no, it's just a matter of educating yourself. And here's the thing, Dr. Oz, he wrote a book called You, the Smart Patient, and he wrote it with the Joint Commission. And there's some really great information about being a smart patient, being proactive about your care. You have to be a smart patient in today's world. You have to.
Well, one of the things, and I know we've got maybe about 4 minutes left, but I wanted to talk about it. I want to talk about 2 different things. I want to talk about dementia, because I think that tends to get, people are afraid of dementia. You can say I've got cancer, you can say I have a heart attack, and you sort of can figure that out, and they'll say you've got maybe X amount of time. But dementia, Alzheimer's, you really are losing control, and in some respects you're losing a piece of yourself. So, and I have heard that particularly things like going into hospitals, you can do things and have it misdiagnosed that you have dementia, and there's all, what is all of that about?
Well, sometimes when people are in the hospital, they, if they're older, they get a little loopy, sometimes medication, could be a UTI, but see, people are so quick to say, oh, that person has dementia. If they're confused, they have dementia.
Right. It's an age thing.
Yeah, but it's not. It could be a UTI. That's very common for people to get confused. And electrolyte imbalance. Not having enough electrolytes could cause low sodium, can cause you to be disoriented. Being in a hospital in an institutionalized setting, particularly at night. Have you heard of the term sundowners?
Yes,
People get a little crazy.
Yes, they do.
So it's not dementia. So definitely, if they didn't have it going in, chances are they don't have it going out. But it is a terrible thing. And Medicare doesn't cover it. And it's a terrible disease.
So let me ask you one other thing in our last couple of minutes here about advanced healthcare directives, because I'm a trust and estates attorney. All my clients get them. And as you were saying earlier, I've got clients, for example, who they don't have anybody, or the people they have are in California, or they're posted, in Japan.
Right.
They can't be here.
Yeah.
So in all of the things we've sort of talked about with what patient advocates do and that type of thing, do you actually get named under those kinds of documents, or does somebody else get named and you just advised?
I haven't been named yet, except for my mother.
Okay.
But I think it's really important that people do make sure that whoever they name really respects their wishes and understands their wishes. Because, sometimes even a spouse won't really know what their spouse wants. Like I had a spouse recently, I heard about a situation where a spouse was talking about with her husband who had beginning stages of dementia. If it comes down to you having a caregiver, does it matter if it's a man or a woman? And she thought he was going to say a woman, but he wanted a man. They had no idea, and they lived together.
Right.
So you really need to do some soul searching and talk to that person and understand their values, exactly what they want. And that's why, we're values-based, because it really, when it comes to healthcare, it is all about your values.
Okay. So you can at very least help the folks if you're not named.
Guiding
and
them.
maybe get named at some point in time if somebody doesn't have anybody.
I like the Form 5 Wishes. It's a great form to help people figure this stuff out.
Right. I will give people a caution on these multiple forms. There's something called a family love letter and the 5 wishes, and then there's the actual advanced medical directive. Have one, because they can conflict, and the minute things start to conflict, you have a problem.
Yes, absolutely.
So people need to be really careful about all of the good stuff. So I know we are going out. I want to have you give your website again, how people can reach you.
www.valuesbasedpa.com.
Okay, and she is Gwen Klein, and she has been very gracious with her time in talking with us and providing us with some fabulous information. So go and visit her website and give her a call if you've got questions of your own, because she can help. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Bettina.
You're welcome.